is to promote interaction between TechWhip institutes also, between institutes, different institutes. And only when you're doing things together are you likely to get to know one another. So that is one hidden agenda behind having this kind of a group activity. So I'm very happy to see that all of you have got to know one another. I hope you have. Now today you know that I'm going to ask anybody to come randomly and introduce any group. I thought we agreed on that yesterday. No? Anybody can randomly be picked and asked to introduce the members of any group today. Anyway, we'll begin with group 5 and we'll have one person from group. So who's, now let me see, I'll pick somebody from group 5 and he'll have to introduce all his group members. So whom shall I pick in group 5? Let me see. Okay, let me pick, yes, Yuvraj, yes. Come, you can introduce all your group members.
It's very difficult for me on seeing this name. Okay. Hello. Warm good afternoon to all. So I'm from group 5. So I will introduce myself. So as sir said, my name is K. Yuvraj from Konga Engineering College, Tamil Nadu. So I am stand before you to introduce my colleagues of group 5. So I feel very difficult even by watching the names. Okay. So even then I will call one by one. Okay. So Soumya Reksha and Seema. Just raise your hand. That's fine. And then Varsha Priya, Manisha, Manasi Kulkarni. Okay, that's fine. And VJTI Mumbai. Those 4 from Mumbai. Okay.
That is an institute, not a name.
Pantwani, yeah, he's from COEP Pune. Okay. And then Mansingh from RIT, right? And then Karande YN, Karan absent. So there is an absentee. And he's my colleague US Raghupati and myself Yuvraj as the name sequence. Okay. And then Zande. Yeah? Gland. Okay. Gland from BVU COE. Okay. Kerala. Yeah, from Kerala.
Very
okay.
good.
Thank you.
A big hand. And now, who would like to answer the questions which were given to group 5? So who would like to answer the questions from group 5? Manu Singh is going to do it? Raghupati, okay. Day 2, all right. What about day 1? Oh, but I have not finished the full explanation. No? Okay, doesn't matter. Day 2. Come. Yeah, come.
Well, good afternoon to every one of you. So this is once again Raghupati from Konga Engineering College, Tamil Nadu. So the assignment given to us is what happens in Laplace transform when we shift a signal. So let me consider a signal represented in time domain x of t like this. Now this signal has been shifted to t naught. So let me denote it as x of t minus t naught. So we know that if for the signal x of t, the Laplace transformation is x of s. So now for x of t minus t naught, we have to find out the Laplace transform. So the formula is integral instead of x of t, now we have x of t minus t naught. The kernel function is e power minus st into dt. And once again the time ranges from minus infinity to plus infinity. So here let me take this t minus t naught be equal to some tau. Therefore this t can be written as tau plus t naught. So substituting in this expression we will have integral over minus infinity to plus infinity x of tau e power minus s into tau plus t naught into d tau. When you differentiate this you will have d tau. So therefore you can pick up this e power minus s t naught outside, e power minus s t naught integral over minus infinity to plus infinity x of tau e power minus s tau d tau. So this can be written as e power minus s t naught into x of s. Am I correct, sir?
Very good, yes. Now interpret. That is the main thing. This I know many of you know.
So here this shifting, it's equivalent to delaying this signal or advancing the signal, which is equivalently taken as shifting in the Fourier transformation, sorry, Laplace transformation.
What about the region of convergence? That is important. You must interpret that, isn't it? What happens to the region of convergence?
Region of convergence will change.
Change
Will
what?
change.
Change in what manner?
So here for a left-sided sequence we will have left half of the S-plane, and for right-sided it will be right half of the S-plane. So based upon the shifting, whether we do right shift or left shift, that is advancing or delaying, proportionally we will have the shift in the region of convergence. That is for right-sided sequences, in case if it is discrete like this, continuous like this. So we will have the ROCs on the right half. So how much I am shifting, proportionally we will have the shift in the region of convergence.
No. Region of convergence will not shift. It is not correct. Okay, so what was the other part given to you?
The second part is the signal being multiplied by.
You try to answer that, then we will see.
Yes, sir. Subdivision 2 is the given signal is multiplied by the signal e power alpha t. So this just I have worked out. Let me see how far it is correct. So now we have to find out the Laplace transform of e power alpha t into x of t. So the x of t being multiplied by e power alpha t. So integral over, applying in the Laplace transformation formula. So here the signal x of t is being multiplied by e power alpha t, and the kernel function is e power minus st into dt. So here integral over minus infinity to plus infinity x of t e power. So here it can be written as alpha minus s into t into dt. So this can be written as integral of minus infinity to plus infinity x of t e power minus s minus alpha t into dt. Therefore this can be written as x of s minus alpha. Is this correct, sir?
That is correct. Yeah. What about the region of convergence? Region of convergence, that is something we forget.
Region of convergence, maybe I can interpret with discrete domain.
No, why jump steps? Anybody else? Yeah.
Oh, yes. In the first case, this is entire right half. Now it will be S greater.
Why entire right half? It could be anything. No, the initial region of convergence could be anything.
Entire S plane? No, it cannot be entire S plane.
It can, whatever was the initial region. But here you are considering a general xt, not e raised to the power 2t. Yes. That is, yes. So you see, essentially, what do you expect? You expect that now instead of S belonging to the region of convergence, S minus alpha should belong to the region of convergence. Right?
So this is
now
the region
S
of
minus
convergence.
alpha, so we don't, whatever is the initial region, initially S belongs to the region of convergence, now S minus alpha should belong to the region of convergence.
So, sir,
So
right above the
depending,
S
you
plane
must
shifted
see,
by
well,
alpha.
we don't know, it can be anything. See, I mean, whatever was the initial region of convergence, now S minus alpha goes there. So accordingly, the S has to change. All right? Okay, I think any other, I think we had given you two parts. No?
Yes, sir.
All right. So let's give Raghuveer a big hand.
Thank you, sir.
Raghupati. No?
Yes, sir.
So now, yes, you can keep that here because the next participant will have to use it. Now, some improvements. So the basic algebraic derivation is okay, but the interpretations were not fully adequate. In the first one, when you multiply by e raised to the power minus st0, what is the problem? See, the problem comes for the extreme contours. Real part of S tending to plus infinity and real part of S tending to minus infinity. When you multiply by e raised to the power minus st0, if initially the real part of S tending to, so for example, suppose t0 is positive, right? Now, real part of S tending to plus infinity can have a problem here. And if t0 is negative, then the real part of S tending to plus infinity can have a problem. And if t0 is positive, then the real part of S tending to minus infinity can pose a problem. So you have to worry about those two extreme contours, whether they still continue to be included in the region of convergence or excluded from the region of convergence. So what can very often happen is that, for example, real part of, now if you take e raised to the power 2t ut, as we were doing in the morning, you had 1 by s minus 2 with a region of convergence, real part of s greater than 2. If you shift the signal backwards, that means t0 is negative, okay, then real part of s tending to plus infinity will no longer be included. So that means the region of convergence will be between real part of s equal to 2 and less than real part. So infinity contour is, so you have to worry about whether the infinity contour is in the region of convergence or not. So initially it was in the region of convergence, now after shifting backwards it's not going to be in the region of convergence, right? No, you are when you want to check causality. So when you want to check causality, real part of s tending to infinity is going to be checked. So it's quite possible that real part of s can be greater than 2 but strictly less than infinity, not including. So the inclusion or exclusion of the infinity contours has to be checked, right?
No, there is. The infinity has a significance, right? In fact, the infinity is a contour in the S-plane or a collection of contours. It's not one point, right? Plus infinity is a contour and minus. In fact, real part of S tending to plus infinity is indeed a contour, right? It's a vertical line going to the extreme right, and real part of S tending to minus infinity is a vertical line going extreme left. Now, whether these are included or excluded in the region of convergence needs to be checked. This is a subtle point. Okay. In the second one, the interpretation was, here I will correct it right here, S minus alpha now needs to belong to the original region of convergence. So, the whole region of convergence will be shifted by alpha now in the second. Yeah, that is the correction that needs to be made. Very good. So that was group 5. Now let us have group 4. Yesterday's assignment group 5. You were supposed to, so you were given two tasks, no, yesterday? Let me see what you were told to do. So you were told to explain duality and what happens in the Fourier domain when you multiply two signals. That you have not explained. Who would like to come and explain that? You like to come? Okay, we'll come back to group 5 later. They'll have to come and explain that. Now, which group would like to come next? So we'll give group 4. Okay, yes, group 4. Good. So group 4, yes. Who's going to introduce the members of group 4? Let me see. Let me see. So who should introduce all the members of group 4? So Professor Prashant Bhattake, would you like to explain? I mean, to introduce? Yesterday's, okay. But who will do your introduction? Would you like to introduce everybody? Maybe I'll ask you to introduce, yes. Youngest. Is it?
Good afternoon, everybody. Yeah, myself Santosh Fatale, and I am from Group 4. So my colleagues include Professor Rajendra Patil from COEP, Professor Ajit Kumar from ICT, Professor Srinivas from VIT, Professor Prashant Bhattake from COEP. Then Professor Ahir Rao from Aurangabad, Professor Praveen from Walchand, then Professor Nitin from VJTI, Professor Chowdhury from Nagpur, and Professor Kiran from VJTI.
Very good, that's good. Now who would like to explain the, yeah. First let's start with yesterday's. Yes.
So there are 3 parts of this assignment. The assignment goes like this. The first part of this is we need to consider a periodic signal, and then we need to find out, or we need to express in terms of Fourier series. So I'll be using continuous time signals or analog signals. So let us consider analog signal xt. And if it is periodic, if it satisfies this condition, t plus, let's say, period capital T. So this capital T is a period, and this signal satisfies this. If any signal satisfies this condition, it is a periodic signal with period capital T. Now we would like to have this Fourier series expansion of this periodic signal. So every periodic signal has got Fourier series expansion. So it can be like the signal, periodic signal can be synthesized using infinite number of harmonics, exponentials, which are harmonically related. So these are e raised to minus j, say omega L t. So where omega L happens to e raised to plus j, omega L t, where omega L happens to be angular frequency, and we require infinite number of these angular frequencies, and then which are scaled by some constant, which are referred as Fourier series coefficients. So for L running from minus infinity to infinity, if we implement this, or if we think of this expression, it is possible to synthesize any periodic signal. So this is the Fourier series. This is referred as Fourier series expansion. So this is the expansion, and we would like to use this expansion and try to find out response of any LT or LSI system. The second part happens to find out response of this signal, periodic signal, to LTI system. And the third part happens to be find out, give the frequency response of LTI system and try to interpret that. But I'd like to take third part first. So if consider any LTI system having impulse response h of t, I'll be using everything in continuous time domain. So think of h of t and its Fourier transform. This is, this h of t is a system where this is absolutely summable, integrable. So think the Fourier transform does exist, and it has got, let's say, Fourier transform h of omega. So where this h of omega happens to be frequency response of the system. Now this h of omega happens to be essentially, it is complex. So h of omega has got two parts, wherein it has got magnitude, and then it has got this angle, the phase component. And this is referred as magnitude response, and this is referred as phase response. So thing is, this LTI system is going to act on any incoming signal, and then it's going to scale the frequency. If we have got frequency decomposition, it's going to scale every sinusoidal signal with this magnitude response, and this is going to alter the phase by this much amount. So with this kind of like assumption or description of system, now we have this Fourier series expansion, where we have got now this this expansion containing these components AL e raised to j omega LT for values of L running from minus infinity to infinity. So these are components of signal, periodic signal. Now we will apply this signal with these components to the system, and we'll get output. Every output, this, let's consider this as some component, let's say some component, let's say component CL. So CL, if we apply CL, which is a sinusoidal signal having some, some magnitude and some the frequency omega L, and then the magnitude and phase are included in this coefficient AL. So CL, if we apply it to the system, it is going to alter. If we apply to the system, LTI system, every component, if we apply to LTI system, it's going to alter the phase and magnitude of this CL by this whatever magnitude of this AL. Sorry, CL has AL e raised to j omega LT, and then this LTI system has got magnitude response h of omega, and the phase response h of angle of h of omega. So every component out here, this AL is output, like in this output, let's say is YL. So this YL will be affected by, affected in this manner. This AL will be multiplied by, this magnitude of AL will be multiplied by magnitude of h of omega. And then this YL, its magnitude, and then phase of this YL will be phase of original sinusoidal signal added with phase of this phase response omega L.
What is the value of omega there? It is not specified.
Which one?
What is the value of omega?
Omega L. Omega L. So at what the frequency, the thing is, because it is LTI system, the output is going to be sinusoidal signal, and every sinusoidal signal, its like magnitude will be altered by magnitude of his response at that frequency, and every phase is altered by its phase response at that frequency. It's going to happen. This is the output. This would be output of this, and then we can combine all this, and we can generate output YL.
Very good. That's a very good explanation. Good, very good. I think that was almost all correct. The frequency response, in fact, tells you how the magnitude and the phase at each frequency is modified by the system. And we already know that if a linear shift invariant system has a frequency response, then every sinusoid produces a sinusoid of the same frequency. So the alteration of magnitude and the alteration of phase is specified by the frequency response. Good, very good, Professor Prashant.
Somehow they are having confusion between these symbols, because I'm not teaching, for so many years this subject. So there is confusion among using these symbols.
Very good, yes.
Now for the second, today, day 2 exercise. Who's going to do day 2? You're coming? Oh, very good, yes. Introduce yourself and come.
Yes, I prepared for only one first exercise. So,
I'll take the paper away.
okay. It was asked to find the Laplace transform of one differential equation given to us, that is 2 d square y by dt square plus dy by dt plus y of t is equal to x of t. So we can find the Laplace transform of a differential equation only when the system is causal, that is, if initial history of the problem is known to us, then and then we can solve or use Laplace transform to find the Laplace transform of differential equations. So
First you must find what happens when you take a derivative. What happens to Laplace transform when you take a derivative? Right? That was a part of the question.
Laplace transform of a derivative of a
So what do you have? What is the Laplace transform of the derivative of a signal?
yes. So Laplace transform of a derivative dy by dt, if we use the definition of this function, Laplace transform, that is the integration between 0 and infinity dy by dt into e raised to minus st dt. Here we assume that t is positive only. So if we integrate this by parts,
Why should we assume that t is positive? Anyway, go on. It doesn't matter.
yes, if we integrate this by part, y of t into e raised to minus st between the limits 0 and infinity minus the integration between again 0 and infinity of the function y of t into derivative of the function e raised to minus st with respect to t. So the limiting values of this function y of t into e raised to minus st for the upper limit t is infinity is 0 if s is positive, and for lower limit it is e raised to 0 is 1, so it is y of 0 minus, if I take this minus s outside the integral, it will be plus s into integration between 0 and infinity y of t into e raised to minus s of t with respect to t. And so we left with the expression s into, this integral is nothing but once again the Laplace transform of the function y of t minus y of 0. So Laplace transform of the derivative dy by dt is s into y of s minus y of 0. and this idea can be generalized for higher order derivatives. So Laplace transform of the second order derivative d square y by dt square, if we apply the same procedure, you will arrive at the expression s square into y of s minus s into y of 0 minus y dash 0. So if we apply the Laplace transform to the given differential equation, then we will arrive at the expression 2s square plus s plus 1 into capital Y of s is equal to capital F of x, x of capital X function of s plus s plus 1 into y at t0 plus y dash at t0. So if the initial history of the problem is known to us, we can put the values for y of 0 and y dash 0. But if this, suppose that these values are not available and we assume these values are 0, then this function becomes, expression becomes 2s square plus s plus 1 into capital Y of s is equal to capital X of s, and therefore y of s upon x of s, the system function, is now 1 upon 2s square plus s plus 1. So further we need to solve this equation, sir.
Well, I think that's good enough, yeah. Okay, I think that's very good. Now, in fact, here he has, can give him a big hand. Now, one thing that he has done, in fact, he has introduced a new kind of, or a new version of a Laplace transform called the one-sided Laplace transform, where you integrate only from 0 to infinity, and that's useful when you have initial conditions. So he's shown you how to solve a differential equation using initial conditions. In fact, that's interesting. You could also continue to use the two-sided Laplace transform, in which case there is no need to bring in the initial conditions and you would get a system function, right? If you use the initial conditions, then you need to bring those initial conditions into your relationship. Yes? What happens to the region of convergence? That's a good question. So what about the region of convergence? So the region of convergence, now in fact in general, yes, would you like to answer? Region of convergence, of this Laplace transform. So now in this case, in many such cases, we have what is called a rational Laplace transform. Right? You have a, look at this transform, it's a rational Laplace transform. Example of a rational. What is a rational Laplace transform? It's a ratio of two polynomials in S. Now, when you have a rational Laplace transform, you solve for the denominator equal to 0. That gives you the singularities. And there is a finite number of those singularities. Okay. Now, plot the singularities in the S-plane and draw vertical lines through these singularities. What are the possible regions of convergence? The regions between these vertical lines. So, there might be more than one region possible. In fact, one other group is going to do that exercise. We are going to take all the possibilities of regions of convergence and show you there are different inverse Laplace transforms for each of them. Right? So, the regions of convergence would be all the possible strips between these vertical lines. So, here for example, you can solve. You can solve this, right? So, S minus B plus minus root B squared minus, so it will be a 4AC by 2A, isn't it? So minus 1 plus minus 7J, square root 7J. divide by 4. Isn't it? So now you have two complex conjugate roots. They lie on the same yes, they would lie on the same vertical line. So now, either you could have the region of convergence to the right of this or to the left of this. Alright? So if it is to the right of it, you will choose the corresponding right-sided sequence. If it is to the left of it, take the corresponding left-sided sequence. And in fact, one of the groups will be illustrating that. So which is the group which was given that exercise, where you had multiple regions of convergence? Group 2, very good. So we will wait for group 2 to explain how to do that. Is that right? Very good, excellent. So group 4 has done a very good job. Good. So yes, let's give them a big hand. Now group 3, good. You're going to introduce everybody? Yeah. Yeah, you can come here, I think. Yes. Or first introduce everybody. Yeah.
Good afternoon, everybody. Myself is Umesh B from RIT Sakrali, District Sangli, Maharashtra. And our group members are Mukul sir from COE Pune, Neeta madam, MIT, and Mahesh sir from VJTI, and Sachin sir, Attar sir, VJTI, Bindu madam, Trivandrum, Kerala, Jeba madam, JVR, Sangeeta madam, VIT, and Sachin sir, Vijay sir, both are from VJTI. Thank you.
Very good. Well done. Now, who's going to answer the questions? Very good. Yes, please come.
Thank you, sir, and good afternoon to everyone. Yes, now I think everyone is fresh after taking lunch and done some group exercise. And I am presenting here whatever sir has given me the task for the group 3. Sir has given the circuit, which I will draw it. The problem given to us is, this is the circuit, and now given RC is equals to 1, input is xt, which is given to be e raised to minus 2t ut, and then question is, what is your output yt? That was the first question using Laplace transform. So find yt using Laplace transform. And second question is, find the system function of this system. So I will start first the differential equation for the given circuit. So differential equation for the given circuit, input is equals to your dy by dt, that is the rate of RC into dy by dt plus yt. That is your given equation, given the differential equation represents the circuit. Now here given RC is equals to 1. So xt is equals to dy by dt plus yt, and now if I take Laplace transform both the sides, so we will have Laplace of xt, this is equals to Laplace of dy by dt plus Laplace of yt using your linearity part. And as group 4 has done, Laplace of dy by dt is nothing but sys minus y0 plus Laplace of yt is y of s, and Laplace of xt is x of s. So this is the equation which we are going to use. Now here y of 0, initial condition, we can assume there is no charge in the beginning. So therefore y of 0 is equals to 0. So therefore we have x of s is equals to sys plus y of s. So ys answer will be s plus 1. So therefore we have y of s is equals to x of s upon s plus 1. And now we calculate x of s, that is the Laplace transform of the input. Input is given, so Laplace transform of xt, which is xs, it is nothing but given to be your minus infinity to infinity e raised to minus 2t ut dt, ut e raised to kernel function s e raised to minus st dt. We have already done this part in the beginning, and answer comes out to 1 upon s plus 2. Thus region of convergence will be your s is real part of s is greater than minus 2. So this side will be your, here this will be the, it is s is equals to minus 2. So this will be the region of convergence. So this is the first exercise, And now second exercise, which was given to us, find the system function. So system function s of h.
But you have not found the, you have to find yt.
Okay, yt. Okay, sorry for that, sir. So first, before going to system function, so y of s is equals to xs is 1 upon s plus 2 into s plus 1. And now this is nothing but we can write using the partial fraction a upon s plus 2 plus b upon s plus 1. And now we can use the partial fraction. So y of s is equals to a comes out to be minus 1 and then b comes out to be 1. So therefore this answer will be Laplace inverse of yt. We will get s to be Laplace inverse of y of s. So it will be Laplace inverse of minus 1 upon s plus 2, 1 upon s plus 1. So this will be e raised to minus 2t plus e raised to minus t. That is your output.
Multiplied, is that for all?
Multiplied by for unit step function.
Yes.
Okay, so this should be multiplied by u of t. Okay, and then we will have the system function. So system function will be h of s, which is given to be ys upon x of s.
Yes.
And now y of s we had 1 upon s plus 2, s plus 1. And now x of s is 1 upon s plus 1. Sorry, s plus 2.
You don't need to do it. You
Yeah,
can do that
answer.
right from the beginning,
Yeah,
isn't it?
yeah. So this is 1 upon s plus 1.
Okay,
Thank you,
very,
sir.
very well done. Yes, very good. To solve it, I don't need to add too much. Except that, you know, here, what was the other part given to you? That's all?
Only that's all.
Oh, that's
Fine.
all. Very good. So, solve the whole part very well. Very good. Today, everybody is solving with great
I just
enthusiasm.
want to tell you something.
Yes, yes, certainly, certainly.
Actually, we all are very happy, at least from mathematics side, I feel I got the insight of the Fourier and Laplace transform. How the response in your electrical and electronics, people know everything that we know, but from mathematics side, what is the insight? What the frequency response, what will be the your magnitude response, phase response, I am learning from Sutone sir, and then at least it will be better for me to have the more interaction in
That
this.
is right.
Okay, thank you sir.
That was one of the hidden agendas, I said, you know. Yeah. In fact, you should get to know people from the other institutes also. Very good. Would somebody like to add anything to the discussion here in group 3? Anything that you want to? Yes. 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 Yeah. Why don't you use the mic so everybody can hear you? And come here and ask. Yeah. You can ask here. Yes.
So in second line, when we are taking inverse Laplace transform, so how this ROC consideration?
That's a very
should
good
be?
question. In fact, that's what I want. So, what about the region of convergence here? So, what are the individual regions of convergence? What is the region of convergence of the system function here? 1 by s plus 1. What is the region of convergence? Real part of s greater than minus 1. What is the region of convergence for xs? Real part of s greater than minus 2. Now, when you multiply them, what happens to the region of convergence? Here, at least the intersection should be there. But in this case, it's only the intersection, nothing else, right? So, what is the intersection? Real part of s greater than minus 1. So, real part of s should be greater than minus 1 in the Laplace, so when you take the s, you must take the s in the region of convergence of intersection of the two regions of convergence.
But when we are calculating system function,
Yes.
we are just getting a function in terms of s.
Right. Yeah, you are getting a function in terms of s, but you know there we did not pay attention. But we should have paid attention to what happens to the region of convergence. So you know the region of what happens is, see, when you remove a singularity, then it is possible that the region of convergence can expand, because that whatever trouble that singularity was creating may not be there anymore. Okay, so a region of convergence needs, so even when you do any operation that you do on the Laplace transform, whether you add two Laplace transforms or multiply two Laplace transforms, or add means add or subtract, right? You must always ask what is happening to the region of convergence there. So the region of convergence will always include the intersection, but it might be more than the intersection also, right? So the region of convergence can expand beyond the intersection, but it will be at least equal to the intersection. Is that right? Yeah. Yes. Yeah. So when you take the double-sided Laplace transform, then the concept of initial condition is not there. No. So see, if one wants, so it's a question of what one wants to do. You use it's like saying that I must use the correct tool for carrying out the correct operation. If I know that if I am dealing with my system, if my system description is valid for all time. When you take a double-sided Laplace transform, you are assuming the system description is valid for all time. If you take a one-sided Laplace transform, you are not assuming that. You are saying the system description is valid only from t equal to 0 onwards. Right? So it depends on how the problem is specified. Is that right? So if the problem is specified saying that this system description is valid only for t greater than or equal to 0. No, it has to be specified. See, it has to be specified. And if it is not specified, then the problem has not been stated completely, posed properly. So you must be, well, from the context it may be clear. So suppose one is dealing with situations where I am describing linear shift invariant systems, and the question of initial conditions cannot come. The moment you have an initial condition, the linearity and shift invariance can be lost. Right? So if you are dealing with linear shift invariant systems, then there cannot be initial conditions. But if you are dealing with systems that are linear shift invariant in a certain for t greater than or equal to 0. So it's possible that you might be dealing with system descriptions that are valid from a point onwards, in which case the one-sided transform can be used. It's a good question. Yes. Yes. So you see, assuming a two-sided Laplace transform is not correct, because you must know whether it is accepted. See, you may not know the signal for some part of time. So the one-sided Laplace transform is useful when you don't know about the signal for, say, negative t. So only if you know the whole signal can you find the two-sided Laplace transform. Right? Yes.
How we are deciding ROC for 1 by s plus 1 is the real part of s is greater than 9?
Okay. Now what are the possible regions of convergence? Either real part of s is greater than -1 or real part of s is less than -1. Which of these would give you a causal? Is the system causal? Of course it's causal. Right? The system is causal, isn't it? So then you have no choice. Then the real part of s tending to plus infinity should be included. So then you have no choice, isn't it? So there's only one possibility. Good, that's a good question. Yes. Is that right? Yes. That's a good question. So what happens, see, multiplication by s is a generalization. So actually, that's a good question. So let me answer that. So for that actually I had also asked one of the groups to write down an expression for the inverse Laplace transform, but they did not do that. Which group had I asked? हाँ, आपने तो टाल दिया ना उसको. So, I prepared only for one question. अच्छा. So now how do you find the inverse Laplace transform? I told you that. So I told you what was my strategy? Find the inverse Fourier transform and then open the cage. Yes. So how do you do that? So x of s. Find the inverse Fourier transform. e raised to the power j omega t d omega. And then open the cage. How do I open the cage? Multiply by e raised to the power sigma t. To put the animal in the cage, what do I do? Multiply by e raised to the power minus sigma t. So how do I open the cage? Multiply by e raised to the power sigma t. So what is this? This is integral minus to plus infinity capital XS e raised to the power sigma plus j omega into t d omega. Now what is the meaning of this? Now where should sigma come? Sigma should be such, sigma should bring S into the region of convergence, isn't it? Yeah, 1 by 2 pi, you are right, correct. Inverse Fourier transform, yes. Now can we write d omega in terms of ds? So if I multiply and divide by j d omega is equal to ds, isn't it? So therefore, what do I have here? I have integral 1 by 2 pi j integral over what? Let us see. xs e raised to the power st ds. Now what should be the, see in the complex plane, how do you integrate? You integrate along a contour. Now what contour is this? Minus infinity to plus infinity in omega. But what about sigma? Sigma should bring it into the ROC. So essentially you integrate on a vertical line in the ROC. Isn't it? You integrate from the lower end to the upper, to the bottommost end or the lowermost end to the uppermost end on a vertical line in a region of convergence. That is how you find the inverse Laplace transform. Now, is that clear? Now, what is, in fact, now you can also interpret this inverse Laplace transform. Can you interpret in terms of vectors? What are you doing here? Xs is like a generalization of the component of xt along e raised to the power st. So, you are multiplying the component by the vector e raised to the power st and then adding up over all these components ds. Is that right? You need only those components that lie on a vertical line in the region of convergence. Any such vertical line is enough. Now, this is x of t. Now, when you take dxt dt, the derivative is a linear operator, isn't it? So, when you take the derivative, each of those components is subjected to the action of the derivative. What is the derivative of e raised to the power of st? It is s times e raised to the power st. So what is the effect of taking the derivative on e raised to the power of st? It multiplies it by s. So each component is multiplied by s. That is the physical significance, right? So in the process of taking a derivative, each of these component e raised to the power of st is multiplied by s. Is that right? Yes. The question is, does it introduce a z? So when you do a derivative operator, then what is going to happen is that you'll be multiplying by s. So it would in general introduce a 0 at the origin, right? S equal to 0 will now become a 0. It may also cancel a 4 at the origin, that's possible. So you are introducing a 0 at the origin, yes, that's true. Well, one way to understand that is, what do you mean by, why is introducing a 0 at, what is the origin really of the S plane? The origin of the S plane is e raised to the power 0 t, a constant. So what happens to the constant when you take a derivative? It vanishes. So you are causing constants to vanish in the derivative. That's why you bring in a 0 in the S plane at S equal to 0. Is that right? Very good. So now group 2, is that right? So group 2, introduction. Yes, that's good. You are enthusiastic. I'm happy. Yeah. Turn the mic on, turn the mic on. Just, yeah, there's a button there.
Good afternoon to all. My name is Sandeep Singade. I am coming from Vijayata Institute. Our group member Amar from COP, Professor Narayan sir from COP, Sandeep Udmale from VJTI, then Shraddha madam.
Why don't you ask them to raise their hands?
Okay, Professor Narayan sir from COP, Sandeep Udmale from VJTI, Nitin Patel sir from Walchand College, Renuka madam from Walchand College, Girgaonkar madam from Walchand College, Shraddha madam from Walchand College, and one is remaining, I think, Sayin madam from HGS Nanded, and one Rajesh Kumar IITS, I think absent today.
Yeah.
Is it here?
Okay. And we
Thank you,
have
sir.
one young man, no?
No, Amar from COP. Thank you.
Very good. Now, who would like to explain the answers? So, what questions were given to group 2? So, who would like to explain? All right, you want to explain? Okay, good.
Hello, good evening to all of you. I am Sayyed Azhar Khan from SGGS INT, Nanded. And our question was,
Below.
from this given expression, 1 over s plus 2, s minus 2, we have to find out the inverse Laplace transform, that is L inverse of this expression in their corresponding regions, that is region of convergence is, first is when real part of s is greater than 2, second is when real part of s is less than minus 2, and third is in between minus 2 and 2. So first of all, let us find out the inverse Laplace of 1 upon s plus 2 and s minus 2, as we can find out it by using the partial fraction technique. So I first split this expression into the two different expressions, that is a upon s plus 2 plus b upon s minus 2, and using the corresponding values of s for the given expression, we get values of a and b as 1 by 4 and minus 1 by 4 correspondingly, so that I can take it outside, and L inverse will be 1 upon s minus 2 minus 1 upon s plus 2, so that it will be 1 by 4 e to the power 2t minus e to the power minus 2t. Now first of all, let us see when real part of s is greater than 2. So when real part of s is greater than 2, just multiply this expression by u of t, so that you will get 1 by 4 e to the power 2t minus e to the power minus 2t into u of t, as this u of t is nothing but the unit step function, and I can define it like this, that is, it is 1 for t greater than or equal to 0 and 0 for t less than 0, and as I have the real part, that is s should be greater than 2, so it will be like this. Okay, and in the next part, that is, if my real part of s is less than minus 2, so it will be, so if I have this minus 2, so it will be like this part. So I just multiply my given expression by u of minus t, so that I will get the inverse of 1 upon.
Is that correct, or some small correction needs to be made? Minus, you also need to multiply by minus 1. So when you have the left sided region of convergence, then
Yes,
that correction is
yes.
required.
So it will be
The partial
So
fraction
1 by
is correct,
4
but yeah.
minus of e to the power 2t plus e to the power minus 2t into u of minus t. Okay, and the third region is in between minus 2 and 2. So simply it is x of t is nothing but 1 by 4 e to the power 2t u of t minus e to the power minus 2t u of minus t, as it is.
Is that correct, or is there a correction required? A sign mistake again. Isn't it?
I
So
think
you-
here I should have minus sign.
no, in the one where you have
This minus of e to the power 2t plus e to the power minus 2t, is
so,
it?
So what is your partial fraction expansion? The
It is 1 by 4
4, right.
and minus 1
So
by
erase
4.
so 1 by s minus 2. Now you know when you have 1 by s minus 2 and you have the region of convergence, real part of s less than 2.
Less than 2.
So you must take a negative sign.
Yeah.
That is correct, yes.
So here, this
That's
is
correct.
it?
So both of them are negative signs.
Yes. And here, this is the region.
That is correct, yes.
So minus 2 and 2.
Very good, that's correct. That's very well done, yes, that's very nice. Now, yeah, thank you very much. Now, a question of importance is, now suppose this is the system function of a system. Suppose this happens to be the system function of a system. There are three systems here, there are three possible systems. Which of these systems is causal? Which of these systems is stable? Okay, that's the question. Which of these systems is causal? Yes. That is correct. Why? Because the imaginary axis needs to be in the region of convergence. Which of them will be causal? Real part of s greater than 2. Because why? Because the real part of s tending to plus infinity should be included in the region of convergence. Very good. I think that's very well done. I think everybody is doing very well today. Yes. So well prepared. I think one good thing is you got to know one another, isn't it? Achha, but that exercise we are still doing. There's enough time for that. So I'm going to pick anybody and then you're going to introduce any group. So now by now you know all the names. Now you've listened to all the names of everybody. So now you have to. I'll pick up anybody in the class and he has to introduce any group fully. Very good. So now group 1. Group 1 who will do the introductions. Let me see. Okay, let me see. I'll ask Professor Kazi to do the introductions today. Yeah. You can come here if you like. Yeah.
Actually, I was sitting deep inside to avoid this introduction part.
That's why I saw you quickly.
Yeah, so my name is Farooq Kazi. I'm from VJTI. Let me introduce my group. The first member is Madhavi Pirami from VJTI, then Professor Dere from COEP Pune, Dr. Sujit from ICT, Jatin from COEP, Lenina from HGGS Nanded, Professor Vas from COEP, Professor Shinde from COEP. Then I remember these two very interestingly because yesterday I was expecting me to come here and give the introduction.
Okay.
So Professor Pandey and Madam Deshpande. So, so both from COEP.
Thank
you
very
very
nice. Very well done. Congratulations. So now who will come and do the explanation, the answer? You're coming? Okay. Very good. That's very nice.
Hello, good afternoon. We are supposed to explain or prove the Parseval's theorem. And the theorem is something like this.
You also require to interpret it.
Yes, we have that. Oops. Okay. So we can do it in two ways. We can start with either LHS or RHS and try to go in which the other direction. So let's start with LHS. Okay, now here this is xt. So that I can, or that we can always write as the inverse Fourier transform in the frequency domain. So we don't, in terms of frequency, so we don't need to take 1 over 2 pi.
If you could, I'll hold it, yes.
And then y bar of t dt.
One more integral, isn't it?
Yes. So just for xt I don't need. It was just xt.
Yeah, xt you don't need. That is correct. For xt isn't required.
So if I write LHS, x of t is y conjugate of t dt.
That's right.
So now yt is not a function. Yt is not a function of t, so I can move this into the other integral. So now this is a double integral with f and t, so I can interchange the order of the integration. So the other integral will be dt, so xf will not be a function of t, so I can always take this out. And now this becomes y bar of f because it's a conjugate. So that proves the original theorem.
Very good. That's very good.
Is that page? Okay. So the next thing is, what is the significance of this? So the significance which I can see, and I'll tell the other view, is this can be seen as an inner product of xt and yt.
That's right.
So inner product in the time domain, it is same as the inner product in the Fourier domain.
Very good. That's a very good.
And as Professor Vyas said, it also represents the total energy of the spectrum. So it remains same in both the domains. So it doesn't change.
Well, it would be the energy if you took xt equal to y. So it's a special case of that. See, when you say the inner product remains the same, if you take the inner product of a vector with itself, it gives you the norm square of the vector. The norm square of the vector can be calculated either from time or from frequency. The energy can be calculated. So then that brings in the notion of energy spectral density. So you know the way the energy is distributed over time or the way the energy is distributed over frequency. So the magnitude square of the Fourier transform now acquires a significance in terms of energy. You integrate it, it gives you the energy over of the signal as well. Very good, very well done, very well done. Very good. So I think we've had a very good session of introductions. Now, would somebody like to add to this? Any other parts? Good, so we have finished before time. That's strange. Pardon? Oh, yeah, group, yes, group 5. Yeah, how did this? Yeah, your duality has to be explained still. Yes, come, now you can explain. I was wondering how we finished before time. I was just wondering. Yes, that group 5. Yes, now you have to come and explain the remaining part. So what happens? So who will come and explain from group 5? Otherwise, we'll... Yeah, no, I see group 5 doesn't explain. They'll have to give a treat to everybody else, all the other groups. They have to treat all the other groups to, what do you want to be treated to? An ice cream? Ice cream, okay. So it's better you come and explain, otherwise... So what was the task given to group 5? You have to explain So what I think you were given the task of explaining duality, no? What is the task? I'll pick, pardon? I'll find out what we asked them to do. Yes, I'll read out. Group 5 was asked to explain duality, the inverse Fourier transform. What happens in the Fourier transform domain when you multiply two signals and connect it to duality? So who is willing to come and explain? Raghupati has already come once. Somebody else should come, no? No? Otherwise, I'll have to pull out somebody from there. You're coming? You want to come? Okay, he says he'll try. Good, very good.
Hello, I am Gladwin from Kerala.
I'll take this away.
So the topic is duality. Duality. So as Sarah has explained earlier, I just try it again. So if I have a signal x of t, then its Fourier transform is integral x of t e raised to minus j omega t dt, which is denoted by x of omega. Then I interchange t and omega. Is it okay? Before that, no. Then I find the inverse x of t as 1 by 2 pi integral minus infinity to infinity x of omega e raised to j omega t. It is d omega. Now I interchange t and omega. So it is x of omega equal to 1 by 2 pi integral minus infinity to infinity x of t, this remains the same, dt. Now x of minus omega, this is x of t e raised to minus j omega t dt. So from this I can get x of minus omega is 1 by 2 pi is it no 2 pi into x of minus omega x of t has a Fourier transform of 2 pi into x of minus omega. Is it?
That's right. But duality I had explained in the morning, no? So now the other part of the question. So what happens when you multiply two signals? What happens to the Fourier transform when you multiply? So you have to use duality to answer that question.
Okay. So if I multiply two signals x of t and y of t in Fourier domain, it's 1 by 2 pi into its convolution of, maybe I am denoting convolution as like this, into the convolution of the frequency transforms of the two signal. Similarly, if I am convoluting two signals in time domain, it is the multiplication of the two frequency information. So this is like
they are dual.
Duals.
Good, I think that's well done. So he saved his group an ice cream for everybody. Oh, you still get an ice cream? Oh, very good, well done. So, by using duality, you get a very interesting property that when you multiply two signals, the Fourier transforms are convolved. You can infer that by duality. Of course, you can also infer it directly. Very good. So we are almost, in fact, now we are just in time. We are just finishing in time. It's very good. Now, any other questions that you have? Any of you have any questions or no? Doubts? Yes. They use the mic, right? So everybody can hear you.
Yeah, we talk about this region of convergence and how Laplace transform, inverse Laplace changes based on that.
Yes.
And that is in terms of S, which is a complex variable.
Yes.
How does that translate into reality? How do I know?
The region of convergence is related, see, the Laplace transform by itself is not a signal, right? The Laplace transform is not a signal. It's a function of S which contains all the information about the signal. And that function of S is defined only in some part of S. It's not defined for all S. That's the way you should understand it. That function can be evaluated only in some part of the S plane. That is possible, right? So even on the real axis, you can have a function which is defined only for some part of the real axis. It's undefined outside, right? So that's the situation here. Or rather, you could say outside that region of convergence, the function is divergent. So in fact, you should not. It's like saying, see, it might happen that a function tends to infinity in a large part of the t on the t axis, and then you don't define it in that part of the t axis, right? For example, suppose a function is 1 in the region between -1 and 1 on the t axis and 0 outside. the reciprocal of that function is defined only between -1 and 1. It is not defined outside, isn't it? That is the kind of situation here. So you must think of it as a function on the complex variable defined only for some part of the complex variable, and it contains all the information about the original function. Yeah. Any other questions?
So in the morning you were talking about bounded input, bounded output stability.
Yes.
So if the signal is not bounded,
Yeah.
or rather if the signal is bounded but the system is inherently unstable.
Okay.
So how do we understand this, or?
Well, if the system is unstable and if the input is bounded, nothing can be said of the output. So the output may be unbounded, may be bounded. I can give you both examples. Now, see, let us take so you want a bounded input given to an unstable system, isn't it? So let us see. Let us take the very simple system, unstable system. Yt is t times xt. I am intentionally taking a system which is not shift invariant, right? Now this system is unstable. Why? Because if I give xt equal to ut, it is a bounded input. Okay. What is the output? Yt is equal to t times ut. Is the output bounded? No, it is an unbounded output. So, it is like saying, so you can think, as I told you in the morning, you can think of a bounded input as you are having behaved reasonably with the system, and the system, an unbounded output is the system has behaved unreasonably with it. So now here you have behaved reasonably with the system, you have given it a bounded input but it gave you an unbounded output. So that indicates the system is unstable. But now you give it the following input, the same system. Give it the input which is 1 between 0 and 1 and 0 else. What is the output here? It rises linearly from 0 to 1 and is 0 outside. Is this output bounded? Of course, it is bounded by 1. So here you gave a bounded input and the output is bounded, but the system is unstable. So in plain language, for example, आप कहते हैं ना कि वो आदमी पागल है या वो औरत पागल, whatever, वो व्यक्ति पागल है. अब पागल व्यक्ति का क्या है? What do you say about a mad person? Why do you say the person is mad? Because there was at least one case where I behaved properly with the person, but the person did not behave properly with me. So then you conclude the person is mad. But zaruri nahi, every time you go, sometime you may go, he may behave well also, you may behave well, he may behave well with you also. It can happen, isn't it? It can happen sometimes. Or it can happen the other way, that you behave badly, he may behave well with you. It's possible. That's also possible. Yes. Can you make an unstable system stable? Yeah. Can you make an unstable system stable? Well, in some cases, yes. In some cases, there are different ways of doing it. You can, you can use feedback sometimes, negative feedback. You can make, that's true, you can make an unstable system stable. For example, suppose you have an unstable system, like a system function of 1 by s minus 2, right? Now you can give it feedback, negative feedback, or with minus k. So now the system function becomes s by g plus s. So now if you choose k properly, you can make the system stable, isn't it? G by 1 plus g. Yes. Yes, yes. Yes, yes.
So how can we say that system is unstable?
Because there was another instance where I gave a bounded input but I got an unbound output. See, I told you, why do you say this person is mad? Because there was one case where I behaved properly with him but he started shouting at me. Yeah.
So you mean to say that it is not sufficient that you prove for one bounded input the system gives you bounded output. You cannot say that.
That is right. That is correct. So if you see, it's like saying that if there is a mad person, or if you find that one person behaves nicely with you one time, will you say that this person can never misbehave, or this person is always? So that is the thing, So person may still, behave madly at times, no?
Yeah.
Yes. Pardon?
BIBO system is always a closed loop system?
No, not necessary.
Not necessary. It may be open loop.
System may be an open loop system,
Okay.
sure.
But then we can say for this particular input the system is stable.
No. Stability or instability is a characteristic of the system. It's independent of the input. Stability actually is a big demand. It means every time you behave reasonably, the person must behave reasonably with you. If there is one instance where you behave reasonably and the system behaves unreasonably, the system is unstable. In fact, people use the term marginally stable. So, some people say that if you give only one, only if I go and tickle him, then he gets upset. Otherwise, he is okay. So then only one particular input causes trouble. That is possible. For example, the system 1 by s, okay, the system, the integrator system, it is called marginally stable. Why? Because there is only one input which causes a problem. What is that input? Ut. If you give ut to the system, it grows without bound, but any other input is no problem. If you give any other bounded input, then it will still give a bounded output. But only so that's what. So only one particular input. So some people call it marginally stable. But marginally stable is still unstable actually. Or if you have a system which has poles on the imaginary axis, some people like to call it single poles, simple poles on the imaginary axis. Then they call it marginally stable, because if you give a frequency equal to the frequency of the pole, then there is a trouble, then there is a problem. But if you don't do that, then there is no problem.
Okay.
Any other questions?
No, sir. I just want to say a word of thanks to you.
Okay.
Yours is a last lecture in this workshop, a formal lecture, and we have been hearing, at least I have been hearing your name, and I was very much eager to sit in your class, and I am feeling fortunate. That must be true with every participant. Being a man from mechanical engineering, very rarely we come across signals and those things, except I personally teach vibration, and I come across that FFT and so many things, of course, many things of signal processing without having any insight about all those things. And really I understood the lectures were so interesting, you know. Coincidentally at COEP, myself and many faculties from mathematics department, we started working on a sort of project. There was Professor Madhu Atre from IISc, and we are working on how to make mathematics interesting, because many of the students are really scared of mathematics. What should we do? Because 2 years back there the result was somewhat worrisome at COEP, and really we felt that we must do something so that the mathematics becomes interesting and the students don't feel like leaving the classroom as we are feeling now. So we are really thankful to you, and sometime in near future I will come to you to invite to COEP. Thank you very much on behalf of all the participants.
Thank you so much. I think you have been a very participative class, and I am very glad that all of you participated very well. But now one thing was left now, you were supposed to pick somebody and introduce any other group. Could you still do that? I think, yeah, you can do it yourselves now. Okay, okay, thank you so much. It was such a pleasure talking to all of you.